So I think Yoshida is a fake horseman, and that's not in the practical or literal sense. See, over the past couple of months, Yoshida has generated quite a lot of buzz. The community has been going feral over what this person is. What is their role within this story? And the more we see of him, the more he's kind of weird, the more he's a little bit of a creep. So to speak, he lurks within the narrative. He puts himself in a position around characters very frequently just by sheer circumstance. We know that there is more to this. We know that there is ulterior motives. We know that there is an organization that currently has their eyes on Denji, and it is within their best interest for him not to reveal his identity. Why would that be? I have a couple of different ideas, but the two that I want to focus on today, the idea of him being a fake horseman and how it has helped generate a lot of attention to the horseman in general, and the second being how we might have viewed his perspective wrong, or at least misconstrued it to be something else. However, did you know that before Chainsaw Man, before Fire Punch, Fujimoto had a litany of one-shots that was very crucial to building his type of writing? If you didn't, you can read all of them right now within a singular volume. This is 17 to 21 by Fujimoto, and this video is sponsored by Viz. If you're a massive fan of Chainsaw Man, a massive fan of Fire Punch, or just Fujimoto's works in general, including his one-shots or short stories, this is perfect for you. This is a collection of some of the earliest works Fujimoto has done, and it is well worth your time. 4 incredible one-shots, all within a singular volume that you can buy right now. These will be going quick, so don't miss out. So head over to Viz using the link in the description, add it to your collection, you will not regret it. See, originally I've already recorded this video, but after looking for a thumbnail and going through some of the imagery, I came across one specific panel. Do you remember the time when Yoshida first met up with Denji to eat cake? This was quite an interesting moment for us and actually gave a little bit of information or insight to what Yoshida was trying to do without revealing too much. We found out about his organization. We found out that they didn't want Denji's identity revealed and that Yoshida would do anything within his power to stop that from happening. The iconic moment from that scene, however, is when Denji eats the cake with his bare hands, and Yoshida seems stumped, and I think the general consensus for that was Yoshida was so perplexed from the situation that he was speechless. When I seen that panel again and thinking about everything that Yoshida has done so far and the importance that he plays, I seen it a little bit differently. Specifically when Yoshida asks why Denji's trying to do all of this, and Denji says, "Because once my secret's out, the ladies will be all over me." This is followed up by a couple of panels of Yoshida's face kind of going through the motions and understanding what Denji just said, and he seems genuinely stumped. But what if there was more here? See, the way that I viewed this only a couple of hours ago made me think that Yoshida got called out, and it's funny to think that what Denji said in a playful manner and is the truth to what he wants to revealing his identity is something that Yoshida is trying to do with Chainsaw Man. And the reason that he was stumped to begin with is because he got caught off guard. He didn't think Denji would call him out in such a direct way, but because no one knows what he's trying to do, he just plays it off weirdly, like he's about to say something, but then just stops entirely and sits there within the moment. For a character that seems like his head is always switched on, for someone that has an answer for basically everything, that's gone up against pretty powerful people, I would assume a couple of odd or misplaced responses from someone like Denji being very unique wouldn't necessarily catch him off guard, unless he got called out, unless what Denji is doing is kind of the opposite of what Yoshida is trying to do with Chainsaw Man. Now, there's no legitimate connection for it. However, the more I thought about it, the funnier it became and more fitting it became for Fujimoto's style. What if Yoshida is just trying to lure all of the 4 horsemen out into the open and using Chainsaw Man as a tool? Sounds pretty familiar, right? How does this go against Denji revealing his identity, however? Well, the way that I see it is that if Denji were to reveal his identity, everyone would be praising him, everyone would know who he is, and so many people would come up to him. There would be nothing special about Chainsaw Man specifically because Denji is now integrated with that being. However, because no one knows his identity now, the only people realistically coming up to him are the ones that can sense Chainsaw Man, and we know that the horsemen can do it. We know that powerful devils can do it. Naturally, the horsemen seem to gravitate around Chainsaw Man, mostly because of their history, I assume, and the presence of what Pochita leaves behind. It doesn't seem descriptive or finalized, but but it seems to give a general idea of where chainsawman may actually be. I find it very curious that Famine is within that school. I find it curious that Yoru, the war devil, took over someone from that school and was in that general area. It could be possible and very easy to believe that they know that chainsawman's presence is within that school, but because there's so many students, they don't know who it is. Now, how this works for Yoshida is that if Denji doesn't reveal his identity, only the horsemen and powerful devils that sends him will come up to him, will approach him, will try and fight him. And that would make for a much easier time for Yoshida to decipher who the horsemen actually are, especially so far because all of them have been women and they all have swirly eyes. I'm not too sure if he can see those swirly eyes or some of the indicators like Yoru's scarring, but it's a step in the right direction and much more easier to identify rather than everyone knowing who Denji actually is. This would mean a couple of different things. That Yoshida's organization is looking for the horsemen, and with how he's introduced into the story, what he's actually trying to stop Denji to do, it makes me think it to be so. The intention, however, behind the organization, I'm not entirely sure, but the way I view it is that if they are deploying one of their most powerful assets, I assume being Yoshida, they expect to go up against some potentially powerful people. This kind of nicely connects to the conversation that Yoshida brings up about the Death Devil and wondering if Denji would be able to kill him. It's a very offhanded conversation, something that Yoshida just brings in out of nowhere with no real relevance to the situation at hand. Denji doesn't really take much concern for it, doesn't even think about it really, but for us as viewers it sparked a lot of interest. Why would Yoshida bring up the Death Devil here? Why would he frame it towards Denji? Does he know about all of the horsemen? And if so, he might want to use Denji as that weapon. With the information we have so far, he may not be the big bad evil that a lot of us originally pinned him as. He may genuinely be looking for all of the horsemen, using chainsawmen as bait to lure them out. Now his organization may want to capture them, fight them, destroy them, whatever it may be. And funny enough, so far it has worked brilliantly. Not necessarily because of Yoshida's intentions, but there has been times where he's skewered the situation just a little bit. You'll notice very obviously that Yoshida is within every single situation just by sheer circumstance. Of course, he's obviously following Denji, but then that brings up the idea of the fake chainsaw man. Who is that? What is that? It's a bit more far-stretched to say it, but he could also be posing as fake chainsaw man, quite literally trying to spread more fear and bait towards the chainsaw man name, and so the horsemen come out to play more viciously. However, there's nothing within our knowledge that would make sense on why Yoshida could do that. Strategically, it would make sense, but power-wise, we don't necessarily know. Is he the fake chainsaw man doing it, or is he getting someone else to do it? Is he working with someone else, or is this a completely disconnected situation? We don't know. Still, I am very fond of this situation that I've just talked about, and while all of the information's kind of loose surrounding it, I enjoy it. I'm not sure if it's going to be a possibility, you never really know with Fujimoto, but I do think it's a perspective to take into consideration. Of course, we can't talk about Yoshida without talking about him being a horseman, specifically death. This has, again, generated a lot of buzz, and the reasoning for that was the conversation that he had about death. Mix that with the murky, mysterious nature of his character, how he operates within the story, a lot of very specific and peculiar information that he does know that he shouldn't technically know. Currently, there is no sign pointing towards Yoshida being death, and I don't think he is. While I like the idea and think it's right up Fujimoto's alley to make 3 of the horsemen women and then Yoshida being death so entirely different, something just doesn't sit right with me. That the purpose of what death is and what Yoshida is trying to do don't really line up properly. A lot of people mention his name and its translation and some of the hand signs that he's doing. Not only do I think it's convenient, it may be even purposeful on Fujimoto's behalf, but his name is very standard. I don't think it's unique in any extent, because if it was, we would have known about this translation a lot more back within part 1. It's only as of recently has this gained traction. I truly think that his organization is the one that's pushing for death, and that they want to find the horseman, kill it, capture it, whatever it may be, alongside the others. A good indicator for this potentially could have been Makima. If they knew that Makima was a horseman, being separate from her organization and privately investigating her, Yoshida would be the best person to do it. Someone that is extremely young, extremely powerful, has a ton of information, and is considered a bodyguard. Have him investigate Makima because she was a horseman. She suddenly disappears off the map, and another horseman is born, known as Naruto. They don't know where she's gone. They want to find her. And what better way to find the horseman than by going to Denji, who is kind of a beacon of light calling in all the horsemen towards him. Realistically, they knew knew that from Makima, and they just had to follow Denji and wait. I think this works really well story-wise though. The fact that the community has brought so much attention to Yoshida being the fake horseman that is death. Even if he is or isn't, the idea of him being some sort of horseman has traversed over to the other horsemen and has exponentially raised the idea of the horseman tenfold. It was naturally growing over time and becoming more and more popular, but I think Yoshida really kicked it up in the air, really pushed it forward in a way that became very mysterious. What aided with this perfectly, timing being impeccable, during this hype we got Famine, the third horseman. But we didn't just get her, we got her reaction to Yoshida, and it was very weird. It seemed suspicious, it seemed cautious, it seemed off, and just those small panels alone were enough to completely flare up the horseman concept in its entirety. Is Yoshida the horseman of death? I personally don't think so, but he's done so much as a fake horseman to empower that concept alone. He's done so much to carry that horseman idea to where it is now, and it's only been a handful of months. I wouldn't be surprised if Fujimoto is taking advantage of this excitement from the community, showing more of Yoshida, making him weird and off-putting and just being in places where he shouldn't be. For example, with the newest chapter, when he rocks up to meet Asa and spend time with her, very specific timing. You could easily say that he's about to confront her or potentially gauge her for questions to see if she is a horseman or not. I'm sure he has his suspicions, but I don't think he's going to blow his cover that easily. So if he is looking for the horsemen and trying to bait them out, I think he's taking his time. The scariest thing about all of this, just to cap it off, Naruto is his opponent. And while Naruto can handle her own, Denji will be the one to protect her. So potentially, in the future, if by any means this is somewhat even close to being possible, Denji and Yoshida will definitely fight, and it will be a bloodbath. They are both extremely powerful, and it honestly could go either way. That would be a scary fight, and very much emotional for Denji to go all out to protect Naruto. However, it seems like they don't know where the control level is. No one does, and maybe that is why Kishibe done what he'd done, to circumnavigate every sort of organization that is seeking her, to control her, to kill her off, and why Denji, out of everyone, is protecting her. Yoshida is a weird guy, but he's playing a very powerful role currently as a fake horseman. So I would love to hear all of your thoughts on him right now. Thank you.